Hi, this is Marshall with Extreme Drums. Today we're going to show you just how easy it is to convert an acoustic drum set into a great E-kit. And we're going to be using this Pearl Export set, brand new kit, a beautiful set of drums. We're also going to be using this Roland TD27 module. That's a great module. And we're also going to be showing you our new design on Extreme Drums triggers, the most sensitive triggers on the market, as well as a brand new line of E-cymbals that we call Extreme Cymbals. You're going to be excited to see these. All right, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to convert this snare drum. Now we can either use this cable to feed it through the vent hole and attach to the bottom tension rod. That comes standard with the triggers. But in this drum, I'm going to use our new design through the vent hole connector with a 1/4-inch jack in it. Show you just how easy this is to install. Feed that through the vent hole. Run the washers and the nut over the cable. Now you've got a 1/4-inch jack instantly mounted on there. I'm going to put 2 triggers inside this snare. We have a new daisy chain trigger that you can plug into first, and then you can also go from there to another trigger. But we also have a rim trigger that mounts separately. We're going to do that too. So first thing we'll do, we'll install the head trigger. Get this around here where you can see it. You just loosen the screws a little bit. We provide longer screws in case you need them. Just kind of snug that up a little bit. We'll adjust that in a minute. Rim trigger, I suggest putting that on whatever is your dominant hand. Put it on that side of the head trigger. Since I'm right-handed, I'm going to put it on the right hand here. That just mounts like that. Now the cable that comes through your vent hole, plug that right into your rim trigger. The daisy chain trigger, I'm going to put on the opposite side from the first head trigger that I put on. Put that over here. And then we're going to plug the rim trigger into the daisy chain trigger, and the extra cable, plug that from the daisy chain to the first head trigger. Now you've got 2 triggers and a rim trigger installed in that. You've got an external 1/4-inch stereo jack right there. Okay, I'm going to snug up the nut on the external jack. Snug that up just a little bit so that doesn't turn. You can have the jack pointing that way or pointing down, doesn't matter. Now to align the head triggers, what you want to do, you want to have that just slightly above the edge of the drum. You can use a drumstick to get just the right positioning, but you want that to come up to where it's actually going to push on the bottom of the head and push up just a little bit, creating a slight bulge in the head. The reason for that is that when you're playing really hard, you don't see it, but the head will actually bounce up and down on the drum, and sometimes that will lose contact with the trigger. When that happens, the head comes up, what goes down and comes back up, it'll slap against the trigger, and you're going to get double triggering, so you don't want that. So that's why I have you push that up a little bit so it's pushing up on the bottom side of the head a little bit. And then that'll give you real good response, real good alignment. I recommend about a 1/16, maybe an 1/8 inch above of the rim there, of the shell. All right, we decided to reposition that external jack so the cable will be pointing down. Okay, now we're going to put a mesh head on top. I'm using a 3-ply mesh head here. I like my little T-handle. Now, in that short amount of time, you've got probably the best responding E-drum. You've got a quiet drum for home practice, for studio use, even for using live. This will give you head triggering, very sensitive head triggering, give you great response, even the ghost notes. It'll also give you rim triggering. So for cross sticking, for rim shots, you've got all that available to you. And you've got the 1/4 inch jack where you can just plug right in. That's how easy it is. Okay, now we're going to convert the 2 toms. And for these, I'm going to put dual triggers in them with a single head trigger. And I suggest mounting the triggers closest to you, so there's less chance that you'd hit right on top of them. It's not going to hurt them, but just in case you do, you're going to be getting a real loud hit, a real loud sound coming out of your module. And if you're not playing hard, you don't want to hear that. So I mount those right close to the edge, right close to you on the edge there. And on these, I'm going to use a little bit longer screws. Again, we provide the screws for that purpose. There's the head trigger. Now this is the rim trigger. Now the 1/4 inch jack. Put that through the vent hole. That easy. Now you plug this into the rim trigger first, and the cable that comes from the rim trigger, you plug that into the head trigger. And somewhere here, got a mesh head for this drum. All right, now we'll take the mesh head, put that on. All right, there's the toms. They're done. All right, we're coming into the home stretch. Got the bass drum to do, and then we'll have the whole set converted. Now in this, I'm gonna put 2 triggers in. Normally, 1 trigger in a bass drum is fine. I'm gonna put the extra trigger. We have a daisy chain trigger for plugging into the kick trigger. If you want to do that, that gives you triggers on both sides of your drum head. So that's what I'm going to put in this one. I recommend putting the kick trigger at about, well, as you're looking at the back of your drum, those of you who are old enough to remember the clocks with the face on them, they would be like at 8 o'clock. Okay, so there's the first trigger. Get that lined up. And I'm going to put the other one on the other side at about 4 o'clock. Get that snugged up a little bit so I can get it lined up. Okay, now we get the jack, put that in the vent hole. It's a great way to feed the cable right through the vent hole. Now the only problem is some vent holes are too small. I think DW drums vent holes are too small for that. So you may either have to take the vent grommet out in order to use this, or else go with the standard cable that just feeds through the vent hole and then attaches to one of the tension screws. I'm going to move this trigger a little bit, move it to another spot. It's that easy to change position of a trigger. Again, you're not drilling any holes in your shells. You're not making any permanent changes. So if you have a new set of drums like this beautiful set, or you have a prize set of drums that you don't want to do any damage to and not have to drill any holes, our triggers are perfect for that. Besides the fact, they're very sensitive. Plug that cable into the daisy chain trigger first. Plug your extra cable from that to your main kick trigger. And that's how it looks. All right, now put the mesh head on it. Now one thing about a mesh head on a bass drum is that if you're using a felt beater or one of those plastic beaters with a felt on one side of it, the mesh will wear down that felt. And the felt, the fibers in the felt will actually cut through the mesh head. Maybe you've seen that happen. You go into a music store and you see a set of electronic drums there, and the kick pad has a hole in it because the beater has worn it out. Well, you really need to put a kick pad right here to keep that from happening, especially if you're going to be using a felt beater. And one of the things about kick pads is that the adhesive on them doesn't stick to mesh heads very long. So I recommend using a kick pad and using some like just standard household glue on the back of it. Stick it on there right where your kick pedal is going to be hitting it. Stick it on, maybe duct tape it on, make sure it stays in place, and let it dry at least 24 hours before you play it. That way it's going to dry good, it's going to stay there a long time, and it's going to keep that mesh head lasting years and years. Now on this, one of the things you want to do, a bass drum beater will hit a bass drum so hard that it'll bounce. You don't notice it on an acoustic head, but with sensitive triggers like ours, you're going to get some double triggering. And so what you want to do, you want to absorb some of that impact. And I recommend putting a couple of pillows inside, maybe an old quilt, old sleeping bag or something. You stick that inside there. Now with this Pearl bass drum, got a really cool feature. They've got this nice little pillow. I was commenting to some of the crew here that this would be great for being on the road, get tired, take this out of your bass drum, take a little nap. This goes right up against the head. It's got a little Velcro strip on the bottom. Put that in there. That gives you a little bit of impact absorption. You can put a pillow right there. You can still put a second pillow in just for more impact absorption. And that way, that'll absorb some of the extra impact when the kick pedal hits that. All right, now let's put a head on the front. It's always good to crisscross when you're tightening up a head. All right. There is an electronic drum.